the many challenges Nigerians face when it has to do with metering and oh boy. And when it comes to those kind of subject matter, of course, they have to speak out. Well, a couple of days ago, the president did direct the NERC to end estimated billing and ensure the meter Nigerians. And that is what we're discussing this morning. We've got Yahaya, who joins us. It's Yahaya, beg your pardon, Yahaya Tunji, who is the secretary, MOMAS, Electricity Meter Manufacturing Company. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today.
Good morning.
Yes, there's
thank you for having me.
All right, the MAP scheme is there, but now that the president has given this directive, should those customers who have been complaining be happy? Should they be expectant that this or estimated billing is about to become history?
Thank you very much, Emberly. It is indeed a welcome development, the initiative of the federal government of Nigeria to really put an end, a definitive end to estimated billing in the Nigerian electricity supply industry. Metering customers is very, very critical to energy accountability and ending the illiquidity crisis, the financial illiquidity crisis that we have in the power industry. However, what the president has actually, the directive that the president has actually given is that a 35% waiver that was a 35% import tariff that was imposed on the importation of electricity meters should now be removed for a period of 1 year. That means that fully built units, which you call FBUs, can now be brought into the Nigerian market and with a waiver of 35% import duties. The essence of that, or should I say that the rationale for that decision is that there is no local capacity to produce these electricity meters. So they find that according to the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, is that the metering gap is over 5 million meters. That was even as at 2015. I think the latest statistics as at 2020 now is somewhere about 6,750,000 electricity meters. That is our metering deficit. So the apprehension or the belief is that there is no local capacity that can close that metering gap, and that is why Mr. President has together with his competent team, has found it worthy that there should be a 35% waiver. However, let me give you some statistics. Locally, in Nigeria, I can tell you, for example, that I know of an electricity meter manufacturer that has an internally that has a monthly manufacturing capacity of about 50,000 meters. That is if they do double shifts, 50,000 meters monthly. So what you have is that in a year where that company can churn out easily about 600,000 electricity meters. So in a 5-year period, that company can actually churn out 3 million meters, which is 60% of the metering deficit, according to the statistics given us for NEC. And I can reliably inform you sitting here this morning that we have 9 different manufacturers and assemblers cut across the federation. What I now want to say is that perhaps what the government should look is for us to carry out an industrial audit. When I mean an industrial audit, there should be a delegate, perhaps a committee or a special purpose team that will go from factory to factory to test capabilities and capacity of these indigenous companies to close the metering gap. Because I can actually tell you that sometimes the journeys that we get in a car and drive so far away as Sokoto might just be sitting right there in your Sokoto.
Why do they say that we don't have the capacity to close that gap?
That the belief is that we don't have the capacity to grow that gap internally. That is in the Nigerian market. Mm-hmm. It is perceived that the local manufacturers do not have capacity to do that. But what I'm telling you is that some of the local manufacturers now, we have about 9 of them. We have manufacturers and assemblers. You know, manufacturers under Nigerian laws is divided into 4 broad heads. We have the semi-knockdowns, which, I mean, basically maybe the meter comes in like 2 pieces or more. You have the complete knockdown, which maybe the meter comes in like maybe multiple parts and you have to put them together. Those are assemblers. You have original equipment manufacturers and original band manufacturers. These are persons who have actually invested in research and development, and they have actually designed the hardware and software of the metering unit. All of these capacities exist in Nigeria.
Just one moment. Now, tell us straight up, do we have the capacity to close the metering gap?
Locally, yes.
Locally?
Yes.
Okay. What will it take? Because we have also heard in time past that there are meters that have been delivered to people, and maybe the discos say, no, this one doesn't meet the required standards, and consequently, they are not usable, and they revert to using estimated billing. Is that real, and what happened, and how do we reverse that?
Thank you very much for speaking on standards. In the Nigerian electricity supply industry, in the metering subsector, we actually have standards. But for me, I've always said at forums that I've spoken is that for standards, the standards in Nigeria is largely vague. Let me give you an example. Is that meter is not like rice and beans, so you cannot really sell to maybe the end user directly, or you can send to maybe a company. You will only have 11 customers, which are the 11 distribution licensees. Now, the specification for metering for Ikeja Disco is different from the specification for metering for Port Harcourt Disco. This varies far from what is required in Yola. So what the essence is that manufacturers are unable to invest in manufacturing on products and stocking them in their factory. This is because that you have not locked out on your off-taker. So manufacturers need guaranteed off-taker. So for example, now you manufacture 50,000 pieces of electricity meters sitting there in your warehouse that can meet the specification of Ibadan Electricity. And then your procurement customer comes, and then it happens to be Benin Disco, or it happens to be Yola. It happens to be Yola. How do you meet that? That means the 50,000 there now, there's no way that you're going to recoup your investments through revenue of sales. So I have always advocated that there is need for standards for all the distribution companies, the regulator, and the Ministry of Power to come together. And for us to narrow down on one meter that we can use, so that our local manufacturers can now start to develop core competence and invest in the efficient development of those metering units.
Who determines these standards? If it is the NERC, why do we have varying standards for different areas and different states?
No, they do not have various standards for different states. They have a unified standard, which we have the metering testing units, we have NEMSA, we have NEC. The industry is very regulated. But what I am saying is that the distribution companies have liberty to choose that, okay, I want my meter to be smart, I want my meter to be analog. I want to be able to check.
There comes the challenge right there, Mr. Yaya, because the discos are not the ones paying the customer for the meters. It's the customer that is going to pay, right?
The discos are not the ones paying the customers for the meters?
Is the disco the one paying for the meter to be used by the customer, or is the customer that is going to pay for it?
You know that in 2018, Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission brought the meter asset provider regulation. What this regulation did was that it introduced a new market participant into the Nigeria electricity supply industry. And what that market participant will do now is that they are going to finance, procure, install, operate, and maintain metering units. So basically, we have two heads under the MAP unit. You can choose, the customer can choose to do the upfront payment, which prices have just been reviewed, or they can do like a financing, like a pro rata payment, whereby the meter can be deployed on their walls and over an amortization period of about 10 years, and this will be deducted from the vending of the customer.
Ultimately, the customer pays for the meter.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, if the customer is the one that is going to be paying for the meter, then there needs to be some form of interface. I'm not sure how effective that has been, because that was also ordered by the NERC.
Well, what do you mean an interface?
The NERC, has already said that there needs to be a conversation between the discos and the people. How well is that going in the first place? Because I don't know if the customer is speaking with the maps?
Yes, yes. You know that by law, according to Power Sector Reform Act, I think of 2005 it is, the discos were given franchise areas. So the disco, it is their customer. The disco, I don't want to say the disco owns the customer, but I mean, it is their customer. So what you have is that the maps are not allowed to interface directly with the customers. Neither is the regulator interfacing directly with the customers. So we interface with the customers through the distribution licensees. So the distribution licensees, I know that many of them have invested in a lot of sensitization events, engagement with their customers, trying to have access to them. And you know that before, I don't speak for the regulator, I don't speak for NEC, but NEC actually carried out an extensive society consultation with civil societies involved. And as at that time, the feedback that we were getting was that a lot of the populace were tired of what they have termed crazy billing, we call it estimated billing, and they were happy to pay for their meters. And that was one of the considerations in bringing the meter asset provider regulation.
Well, just to put in this, I mean, yes, you did explain some provisions of MAP, but the thing is, the way it operates at the moment is that before you get any sort of prepaid metering, you pay upfront. You pay completely. And if you have, even if you got into the place newly, and if there are outstanding bills that need to be cleared, they require you to clear every part of that bill before the discos provide you with those meters. This is what the customers have consistently said it's going on.
That's correct.
So that's what is going on now. So if you don't, I mean, unlike CapMe, in fact, those who paid money with CapMe is gone. So they can't access their funds anymore. It's gone with the wind, as they say. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was really going to ask because from what Chamberlain said, for example, if you need to get a three-phase meter, you pay about 89,000 naira. For a single-phase meter, you pay 48,000 naira. So this announcement, this one-year waiver of import duty on electricity meters, I'm trying to calculate. So what does that mean? If people want to buy, yes, they have to pay. If they want to buy meters now, so does that mean they will have to pay less, or the arrangement you spoke about will come in? What is that going to mean, or how will that affect the price of meters right now?
Okay, let me give you some background. And what has happened is that the regulator had chosen to cap the pricing of meters. What they have done is that they don't want to leave the distribution licensee or the meter asset providers to have the discretion to charge the customer whatever price they want to do. So as you've rightly said, the prices are capped. But what we have is that if the prices are capped, but the specification of the distribution companies remains uncapped, they have unfettered discretion to be able to say that this is the type of specification of meters that we have. So you find that, let's first understand that the power sector is like just any other business. It's naira and kobo, profit and loss. So basically now, the meter asset providers, in procuring these meters, they are saying that, most of the importers are saying that the cost of importation of the meters vis-a-vis the 35% levy that is on it, by the time their lands, vis-a-vis their margins, their logistics and operational cost, the cost per metering unit is going to be higher than what the regulator has capped. So that was why they had appealed to the regulator to go and consult with the relevant ministry of the federal government to be able to see how there can be some sort of temporary waiver. That's why the president had approved the one-year waiver. But what I'm saying is that the intent of the federal government is clear, the intent of the regulator is clear, is to ensure that there is metering units on the wall of every customer. But we do not have to import those metering units, is what I'm saying, is that we can look inwards because there's local capacity.
All right, well, we've got Chantel Abdul, who is the Group MD CEO of Mojek Group of Companies. Good morning, and thank you for joining us as well today. Now, in consideration of MAP and the recent directive by the president, can we close this metering gap by 2022?
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me on the show. It's good to be here. I absolutely think it's possible by 2022. However, I think what's important is that we must invest in the necessary infrastructure. And that infrastructure, of course, is the manpower necessary. So I tell people that procurement is the easy part. The hardest part is the rollout and executing of these is the actual rollout. Now, the rollout is a very, very tricky subject because that requires trained, skilled, technocrats. And by technocrats, I mean technicians, installers. There's a whole process to it that would make the ease of, the deployment of meters a lot faster. At Mojek, we came up with a process. At Mojek, we came up with a process that it's a mobile map process that made it easy for us to be able to roll out meters to customers in Nigeria. This made it possible for us to actually go into communities. And when we are in these communities, we're able to speak to members of the community and roll these meters out in literally 2-3 days, right? So you go through the entire process, which is KYC. Something that we don't appreciate today is that most utilities don't even have the data on their customers, right? So they don't have accurate, maybe information, addresses, or what have you. So how do you go to meet someone if you don't have the right address, the right phone number, and how do you bill them right afterwards if you don't have the right information? So the KYC process is the start. Then you must survey this customer. To survey this customer, you must obviously go to the customer's house and make sure the customer's house is meter ready, right? Most times, most customers' homes are not meter ready. So this mobile map process, without trying to go through the entirety of it, makes it easy, right, for you to embed in a community, target a community of 2,000 customers, 3,000 customers, and go through the entire exercise.
Just a minute, Chantel. When you say that they are not meter ready, could you explain so that they know what you mean that they're not meter ready most times?
So being meter ready is for your home to be meter accessible. So, for instance, most people's homes are, there's poor wiring, there's poor cabling, right? So those cables we have to get the right cables, get the right wiring. Sometimes, you see a house, but there may be 4 people who live in the house, right? Or there may be, what I mean by that is you see a building, but there may be 4 residents, meaning their house may be partitioned into 4. And whereas prior to, they all got maybe one estimated bill. So there's a separation required there. So there's a whole new set of wiring that also needs to be done, right? So those are some of the things that needs to be done for this to be meter, ready. Now, I think the MAP program has given a lot of operators, right, the experience. Well, many of us have been in the field for several years, right? So Mama just spoke before I did. And we've been doing this for years. So we know what it takes, right, to be able to run a meter program where you can install over 100,000 customers in a month as much as possible. What you need is that manpower, that reliable, trusted manpower that will be able to install the meters, in customers' homes, right?
One
so
moment.
Rolling this out, instead of us using the traditional...
Just a moment.
Go ahead.
I mean, in the context of this latest move by the government, I mean, you've talked about some of the other challenges you face, but in the context of this import waiver, this 1-year import waiver, we're thinking, is that what you really need? Is that going to be effective? Because you sound like there are other issues and this is just maybe a drop in the ocean. So how effective will this import waiver be to achieving that goal of metering everybody, and will it reduce the cost?
I think the import waiver would, of course, would enable importers to be able to bring more meters in, which, of course, then would add to the supply. The issue we're actually having to some extent is obviously not a demand issue. It's a supply issue. So that's why the MAP program was brought up, right? So it was going to allow some operators to import meters and those of us who are manufacturers to manufacture in country. Those importers, of course, are required to have a 30% local content, meaning they must buy locally, right? So what that 35% waiver does is that it allows importers, as the gentleman alluded earlier, right, not to have to face a 35% levy, right? Which of course is not included in the price of the product at the time, right? In other words, the 48,000 that you had mentioned and the 80 something thousand, right? So that's pretty much what that would do. But you cannot do it to the detriment of manufacturers, right? And so there has to be a happy medium, okay? Today, most people don't know this, but there are almost 10 manufacturers, or shall I say producers, whether they're in the level of assembling or manufacturing in the country. And they keep, I think different MAPs are now setting up as manufacturers, or producers in the country as well. So we must ensure that the program does not hurt local industry. And this is critical because local industry, and by that I mean the producers, are generating or they're creating jobs, right? They're contributing to the GDP, and the list goes on in terms of what we're doing as producers.
There's a concern. I'm not sure you were able to join us from the very beginning of the conversation. I hope you were. The clip we played showed some customers who were complaining that, look, we've been getting estimated billing from our discos, and then they say that we should buy the meter, and many of them are saying that they cannot buy the meter with which they will be charged. Well, that's one conversation on one end. But the question that I'd like to ask you is, perhaps there is poor communication between the people, the customers who are going to be using, whether they are individual or corporate customers, and the discos who are your own interface with the customers. So one of the issues that a number of people will be arguing with is, in their heads, is, so I buy the meter, or rather I pay for the meter to use in this facility. Can I take that same meter away with me to another place with my business because, after all, I paid for it? So I think that conversation needs to be made clear to people. How do you respond?
Well, that's a very excellent question. But I think we're about to move into a new regime very soon. I'm sure you saw the presidential order as it relates to, this mass metering program. What the Nigerian power sector has seen is a multiplicity of programs, all in the effort or all with the direction to close the metering gap. This gap today exists at the official number is about 6 million. But when you consider the separations that I mentioned, it probably gets to about 10 million. Now, why is the end user paying for meters today? Ideally, they ought not to, right? However, it's been almost impossible because the utilities, right, their books are overladen with debt that it makes it almost impossible, well, not almost impossible for any investor to sort of come in alongside the utilities and roll out meters in masses like we need, right? So this program, right, then said, okay, like you mentioned earlier, CAPME was for willing customers who are able to pay. The same is true also for the MAP program, right? That MAPs, or other customers who are willing to pay up front, right, would get their meters. But there's also a financing arm. And the MAP, and that's what distinguishes the MAP program from all other programs, is that if you can't afford to pay for it up front, you can finance or procure or rather pay for it over a 12-month, 24-month, or longer period. Now, to answer your question, the regulator has stated that the utilities must pay. So this is literally a credit or a loan to the utility to say, look, I don't want estimated billing anymore. I would like to be metered quickly, right? The utility is therefore required to refund the customer in about 5 years, I believe, right? The amount they paid, right, for the meter. So at the end of the day, it's a lease, right? It's almost like it's a loan to your provider, and your provider will refund it. And as such, because your provider will be refunding it to you, right, he therefore owns the asset. And think about it. I like people to, I usually use this analogy rather, that a meter is a POS. So you don't go into a restaurant with your POS saying, hey, you're going to use my POS to pay for my meal that I just had in your restaurant. The merchant gives you the POS. In this case, what we're saying is this merchant may not be able to afford to give you the POS right now, but it's as though a charge is being given to you. So this merchant is providing you the meter, and you're paying for it somewhat through a charge, right, which will then obviously be refunded to you through rebates over a period of time. So as
Okay,
such, because they're very sensitive instruments, the end user unfortunately cannot move around with it, even though in an ideal situation, that's what probably makes sense.
All right, Mr. Tunji, yeah, just quickly before we go, let me ask you, as things stand, for those who are waiting, hoping that they can indeed get this prepaid meter to stop the estimated billing, when is the most realistic time they can get it?
Immediately. Let me allude to what...
Immediately?
Yes.
How do you mean immediately?
That's
If
what
they
I'm
go
about
now, can they...
to explain to you. Let me allude to what Ms. Abudu said, is that the discos are open and they are willing and they're ready and accepting expressions of interest, applications for meters. But as she rightly said, you have to be ready to be metered. Some customers are ready to be metered.
Yeah,
for
but
example,
many have been ready since yesterday, and they can't get meters, as it were. They've been waiting and queuing. They even paid for CapMe, they did all that. They can't get it.
no, CapMai is in the past, and it
I
is some
know,
of the
that's
failures
how
of
bad
CapMai,
it's been.
and that is why we are talking about MAP now. But what you've asked is that, can a customer be able to get meter? And I said, yes, the customer can get meter. If you approach your distribution companies, did your distribution company has no interest or no incentive of not putting a meter on your wall? Because the regulator has also capped the amount of estimated billing that can be charged on R2 and C1 customers. That is residential, unmetered, and commercial customers. That is C1. So in essence, they have to meter you. So if you put in an application, it will be forwarded to your MAP. If you're meterable and you have cleared all your bills, I think you'll be able to be metered in 7 days.
All right, so they heard you. So for those out there, look, let us know what your experience is. Well, of course, we'll forward it to him because he says you should be able to get that immediately. But we have to thank you both for talking to us today. Tunji Yahaya, the Secretary, Momas Electricity Meter Manufacturing Company, and Chantal Abdul, the Group MD CEO, Mojek Group of Companies. We're back in a moment, everyone. Please stay with us. Welcome back. All right, that's what we're focusing on next, the plight of Nigerian businesses in Ghana. We've got Dele Momodu. He joins us from Accra. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Well, actually, many just wondering what is really going on, because some of these issues have been raised in several fora differently, and it's still playing itself out. So could you tell us, have things improved? What is the current situation now about those Nigerian businesses that are being subjected to what some think is an unthinkable requirement from the Ghanaian authorities?
Yes, good morning. I'm actually in Lagos this morning.
Oh, nice.
Just to correct that. Yes, but that's fine. Yes, it's very unfortunate, and this is not the first time it is happening. Remember that just under 2 months ago, part of Nigeria High Commission's buildings were demolished. Someone came there in the middle of the night, brought a bulldozer, and before you could say Jack Robinson, the buildings were being pulled down. They called the police, nobody responded, only for them to say sorry later. They offered apologies. I don't know what has happened. I heard they said they were going to rebuild. And then this came again. This issue of traders is very unfortunate, because I remember when we first arrived to do business in Ghana, and we're not talking about trading, we're talking about at our level. It was, we were required to pay $50,000 US. So you transfer the money into an account in Ghana, and then it will be converted into cedis, and then you can start your business. But traders usually were much lower. Then some Ghanaian traders started complaining. I think they felt threatened by the aggressiveness of our marketing strategies as Nigerians, and they moved and said they must pay $300,000 US before they can trade. If anyone had $300,000, you won't leave your country. It will go to Ghana, you know. And then we protested. We tried to make the authorities see reason. But the problem is they will come down after some time, then they come back again, and it's always been a ding-dong affair. I suspect that any year there is election, this thing gets hotter. It seems like in the US, where people have to play to their base, they believe that they can use it to tell people that we love you more than others, we don't want foreigners. But when they say they don't want foreigners, usually it is Nigerians. There was a video I saw again last night in Kumasi, where our traders, all their shops have been locked down in Kumasi, and they are insisting they must go. And I saw people with GIPC, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center. They gave these people valid documents. As of last year, a lot of them were given their resident permits. They renewed it. This year, they have deliberately refused to, so that they can declare them illegal and persona non grata. So, to cut the long story short, I think the time has come that our government must intervene positively on the side of our traders, because these are people who went to Ghana not to commit any criminality or anything, but just for them to do business. There are many Nigerians and Ghanaians living in Europe, in America, in Canada. They don't even have papers. If the police in those countries decide to beat up, our citizens, we will shout Black Lives Matter. But here we are in ECOWAS, and this is being done to us. And my argument all the time, and my suggestion is that, look, if ECOWAS is not working, Nigeria should stop investing in stupidity, because it is unfortunate. They are giving all kinds of spurious excuses. Oh, Nigeria closed its borders. What has that got to do with doing business in any country? I remember some years back, Ghanaians were complaining that President Obasanjo banned some Ghanaian goods. And I had to go on television and radio in Ghana that it is not true. President Obasanjo banned some goods, contraband goods, and these goods were not manufactured in Ghana. Most of them, what happened was that people will go to China, go to India, and wherever, and bring those goods through our neighboring countries before they bring them to Nigeria. They are contraband. Nobody ever said Ghanaians should not do business in Nigeria. Nobody ever said Nigerians should not employ. I have staff, Ghanaian staff, both in Ghana and in Nigeria. Nobody has ever disturbed them in Nigeria. Nobody. I repeat, there was a year when Governor Gbenga Daniel was governor of Ogun State. Some Ghanaian family, they had a factory in Agbara, Ogun State, about to be demolished. They were erected on an illegal site. So they got my number, they called me frantically that, hey, all their investments will go up in smoke if the governor does not intervene. I called the governor, I said, these are Ghanaians, they are investors. We are the ones always shouting that we need investors. Please. And immediately, Governor Gbenga Daniel intervened and said, because they are foreigners, they will find a way to help them, and they did not demolish. In Ghana, I saw people pleading with the police, begging them, showing them papers. These are our papers. We are genuine. They said no, they must pay $1 million US before they can be allowed to trade in Ghana. Please, somebody who is selling spare parts.
Now, it appears as though, look, this has been happening for a while, and it appears calculated. What do you think is the underlying reason why this is going on?
No, I believe that this one, we have 3 months to general elections. So every time there is a general election, these things, come back. But it is because we have not nailed it finally. We must nail this coffin and bury this dead body. It is unfair. It is unfortunate for Nigerians to suffer anywhere in Africa, not to now talk of West Africa, where we are the leading giants where we sponsor most things. There is no African country that say Nigeria has not been a good brother.
But the challenge
Forget
now,
about any anybody can give. Nigeria has tried for every, and I know, if I don't know of any other country I know but Ghana, that Nigeria has been very good to Ghana.
You know, the debate or the argument a lot of people put forward is this is in the law, and you reference that GIPC Act. So they say it's in the law, it's what the law says, and one wonders, so how can that be escalated? Because it's a law, they always refer to the law.
It's a very, very skillful and indirect way of saying go back home. There are laws and there are laws, but some laws don't make any sense. That's why I gave the example. There are laws in America, there are laws in Europe that says nobody must come to work in our country unless you have papers. If they decide to enforce those laws without the milk of human kindness, we will not have any of our children, any of our brothers and sisters living in those countries again. Not to now talk of. So, how do you make a separate law that goes against the letters and spirit of ECOWAS? It is deliberate. They don't know how to tell these people go back to your country. So I told you, I said, even we who are supposed to be big business people, we were asked to invest $50,000. So how does $50,000 become $1 million within years? And then you target traders. And I can tell you for free, okay? I'm an authority of Ghana. Anyone who knows me knows that I love the country. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm a fanatical disciple of Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah will be crying in his grave to know that Africans are treating their own brothers and sisters in this manner. Let them tell these people to go home. And I was happy when I saw a video last night in which the leader of the traders in Kumasi said our government should please come to their rescue. If they don't want us, please come and help us to evacuate us. You know, it gets to a stage in life where if you cannot go forward, at least you can move forward. If you don't know where you are going, at least you know where you are coming from. I tell people all the time, if a country does not want me, I cannot force myself on the country. This is so disheartening. I mean, you will not believe what these guys are going through right now. These are people who are just doing something to make a decent living. They are not living illegally. I am telling you that there were papers. As of last year, these people had their resident permits. And yet this year they refuse to renew it for them. So what do you want them to do? So, and they have an association.
Okay, in terms of getting a solution.
One of them was waving his papers. They said, get lost, get lost. They did not bother to look at them. He still has a valuable thing. They shut down the place.
In terms of getting a solution, we reached out and we do have His Excellency Musili Obanikoro, former Nigeria's High Commissioner to Ghana, former Minister of Defense. He joins us from Abuja. Good morning and thank you for joining us. Well, many have made huge reference to while you were the High Commissioner that certain things wouldn't even happen. Now that you've seen this happening today, what's going through your mind?
Well, thank you for having me here. It's a very sad development, to be honest with you. When you look at things like this, we take one step forward and we take several backward, which doesn't help anybody. More so in an environment where most of our economic activities are still within the pedestrian level. When I say pedestrian level, I'm talking about a situation where our informal sector is bigger in terms of the numbers of our people involved than the formal sector of our economy. But having said this, you see, the problem around this is the fact that we do things in a manner that we cannot sustain. What do I mean by this? When I was ambassador, when I was the High Commissioner in Ghana, I can recall vividly that we were able, to a large extent, resolve this matter. And how did we do that? Engagement, serious engagement at all levels. I can recall I made a trip to Kumasi to sit with Ashanti Hini, which is the foremost traditional ruler in Ghana. And I solicited for his support that there is need to engage our Ghanaian brothers and sisters to let them understand that an average Nigerian who can afford $300,000 will not migrate to Ghana. He was very sympathetic and he made efforts to mitigate some of these issues. And we tamed it. Before I left, we were also able to promote Ghana-Nigeria Business Summit, which was started before I came in. But I invested a lot in it because I saw it as a platform to deepen our engagement with Ghanaians, to the extent that before I left Ghana, we were able to extend it to Togo and Republic of Benin. And this was a program spearheaded by now Oba, then Otumba, Oba of Erimon, Michael Ajayi. And immediately I left Ghana, the whole thing was disbanded. This would have helped because the Ghana Investment Promotion Council did participate strongly in this, and it was a yearly thing. You see, prevention, they say, is better than cure. It is not when you see an ailment coming up, it's better to deal with it squarely once and for all, rather than wait for the full presence of the ailment before you now start applying medication. The effort it will take to resolve it will be more than if you nib it in the bud immediately it is noticed. So, and furthermore, before we left, we also put in place Ghana-Nigeria bilateral commission between Nigeria and Ghana. And I can recall that that platform will have resolved most of these issues. Because let's face it, the Nigerian can-do spirit cannot be merged by any part of this continent. Nobody
Excellency,
can merge.
if I can just ask you a question
spirit
on this same issue that you have just raised now. Well, it would seem like there is some plan. Of course, maybe you want to react to what Chief Dele Momodu said the other time about an indirect way of telling Nigerians to go back home from Ghana, because it is certain that the Ghanaian government is aware that there is such a thing as the ECOWAS protocol, which says any West African can go to any country and do business there, live there, and all of that. It is after that, years after that, even decades after that, that the Ghana came up with the GIPC Act, which says that certain businesses are only reserved for their own citizens, Ghanaians. Of course, there is nothing wrong with that. But what do you see? You said we need to resolve the issues. What are the issues, knowing that the Ghanaian government is going headlong against the ECOWAS protocol? What, in your own opinion, are the real issues that are not being dealt with?
There are formal and informal issues. Let's be clear about this. One of the informal aspects of it, I just said, our can-do spirit has given us an advantage that most African countries cannot match. That is the truth. And the need for the locals to protect themselves is one of the reasons why you have what you have here today. Yes, given ECOWAS protocol, where were we when the law was enacted in 2007? It went before a parliament. When a bill goes into a parliament, there are processes. There will be public hearing. Where were we Then they moved it from 300,000 to 1 million last year. Where were we? We have ECOWAS Parliament. We have strong members of Nigerian Parliament who are members of ECOWAS Parliament. Where were we? You see, the law is the law. And let me use America as an example. You have NAFTA between America, US, Canada, and Mexico. When Donald Trump came on board, he didn't feel comfortable with some of the agreements in the contract that governs the relationship. And he revisited it, and those things were amended to suit American interest. That is why it is very germane for Nigeria, as close as we are to Ghana, to have a bilateral agreements that the two of us will sign to and live with. And let me also say this. When you have crises like this, you don't depend on government alone to resolve it. There are Nigerians living who are as powerful, if not more powerful, than even our government within the Ghanaian space. Let me give you a good example. As small as Rodman in America, a footballer, a basketball player is, America deployed him to North Korea for American interest. There is nothing stopping Nigeria from deploying those great Nigerians. Let me say this. I'm not saying this because he's seated there with you in Lagos.
Now,
Bashorun Dele Momodu, whether you like it or not, is a well-connected Nigerian within the Ghanaian space. And there are others who are even bigger and more powerful than him that we can deploy. If you deploy those men and women and get them to have a constructive engagement, not when election is coming, there's nothing that we can achieve between now and election time. Because Ghanaian election is always close. The difference is always so thin that for someone to now budge on an issue that is as fundamental to the grassroots is almost impossible.
Your Excellency, so let's bring in Bashorun immediately so that he will respond to what you just suggested. So please, how do you respond to that? Deploying you and several other Nigerians, wouldn't that be a good idea?
It won't work. What I want to tell Senator Banikoro is that the Ghana he left behind is not the Ghana that we have today. And that is the truth. You know, as a diplomat, there are things he cannot say, but as a businessman, you can't like my money and you hate my face. So I will say it as it is, that the Ghana he left behind, and he knows that even when he was there, I had a restaurant. That restaurant was frustrated back and forth. I moved the restaurant from Osu, which is the heart of Accra, to the airport residential. I traveled, so I was making up the place. I traveled, then they called me that a minister who was living across, Senator Banikoro is aware of this case, said over his dead body that my restaurant would not happen. I had every document, fire, brigade, whatever, every document. You will not believe it. He brought in thugs and they pulled down, my signposts and everything. The day we were going to open the place, Senator Banikoro had to bring his official car, diplomatic car, to position it in front of the place before we could open that restaurant. I'm telling you that it is much worse now. It's about the temper and temperament of whoever is in power. I'm happy you cited the example of Trump. There are people in Africa who want to copy that style. And I am saying there is no point wasting time. Simply tell these guys to go back home. What is happening is that The hatred now is much, much deeper than there is nobody. If they are harassing Glo with all the money, all the investments of Glo in Ghana, people are harassing the Nigerian companies there. The banks are bleeding. They can't talk. So that is the problem. There are issues that I know a diplomat will not be able, and there is nobody today, I can guarantee you, who can talk. In fact, I saw the way the foreign minister was firing salvos to our own minister in Nigeria last week on Twitter. She went ballistic on Twitter. She opened a new Twitter account and was firing our minister in Abuja. And let me say it, our ambassador who has just been brought back home, Abikoye, did fantastically well. He's been going around, going to Kumasi, going to everywhere. The same procedure, the processes that Senator Bani Koro, laid out just now. Nothing happened. They demolished our building. What happened? Is that a case of bilateral? So what are you going to talk to him? Somebody who comes in the middle of the night to pull down, an official residence of a government, a foreign
All right,
government?
Chief, we'll go to break, but when we come back, we'll let His Excellency respond to some of what you suggested. Please join us again. Welcome back, Your Excellency, Senator Bani Koro. From what both of you have said and what Bashorun just said, it does appear as though the buck stops at the president's table. Abuja has got to rise and do something. It's at that level that they think that is where solution can come from now. Is that the case?
You see, no doubt that there is need for a strong push from the presidency. But before that is done, you see, Bashorun said something that I don't want us to gloss over. And when I suggested that there is need to have some eminent personalities to also weigh in, there are other competing issues in this society today that the presidency is very busy with. Yes, Ghana is very important to us, but you will agree with me that they cannot devote all the time in the world to resolve this matter. And it goes beyond what I can also speak to on television. He alluded to the demolition of our mission. The information at my disposal, if I mention it on television, the relationship between Nigeria and Ghana will collapse today. And I'm saying it with all sense of responsibility and with all seriousness. Because I spoke with people at the highest level of government in Ghana, and the response from them was scary and mind-boggling. But going to the issue at hand, you see, your power abroad is derived at home. If you say those Nigerians should come back home, what are they coming to? A number of them, they've been in Ghana for 30, 35 years, 40 years, some of them, some 20 years. And they have invested a lot in that system. But because of the pedestrian nature of Ghanaian traders, they see the presence of Nigerians as an existential threat to them. Now, how do we go about resolving this? One, I do believe strongly that if the government of Nigeria, all this I'm saying can only happen after December 7 election. The two major political parties in Ghana will not sit down constructively with anybody to agree to anything between now and the election time. Because President Akufo-Addo, giving in to the demands of Nigerians, will put him at a disadvantage for the NDC to win, and vice versa. So, whatever plans we have must be immediately put in place towards post-December 7th election. And we must get Ghana to expunge our name, which is Nigeria, from the list of countries that must comply with either the 300,000 or the $1 million capital that is expected to be paid to Ghana Investment Promotion Council before you can operate within Ghana. That, to me, we missed an opportunity when Ghana was in dire need and Nigeria assisted immensely to get them out of the economic mess. That would have been the time for us to
just
get
one moment,
them
Your
to expunge
Excellency.
our name.
There's something that you
From
said
that-
I think many
from
people
that law.
would not want to gloss over or for us to paper over. Well, on the one hand, you said that the government of Nigeria is busy with some more pressing issues, and perhaps a number of people will agree. But then some will also argue that when it was time for the president, when Nigeria needed to show some strong positioning in Mali, the president personally went to Mali to address that issue. So far, we see what has come out of that one.
These
These same issues that are
more.
just one
I
moment.
didn't say more. No, don't get me wrong.
Okay.
No, I didn't say more. I said competing challenges. I didn't say more. I said competing challenges.
Okay.
And you will agree with me. There are so many competing challenges.
Well, again, I could agree with you on that one, but some would also say that this is also very, very important because it involves Nigerians outside, outside the country. The same thing happened in South Africa. Not much has happened. So, if there are diplomatic issues that have not been addressed, isn't it about time we really faced it and deal with it once and for all?
I am now also putting it to you that timing is also very key. When you address, if you also recall, the one in South Africa also came when South African election was coming. And they escalated it. And now you don't get to hear of it again. They will wait for another 5 years when the election is almost around the corner. Then it is escalated again.
Okay.
Some by the political class to show that the government is working to resolve the issues of an average person within
Okay, Your Excellency, pardon me to jump in at this
It's the same
time.
thing that is playing up again.
Okay, let me now
Ghana.
bring in Basharu just before we go,
That
talking about
any
solutions.
effort to
Pardon me, my apologies on that. Let me bring in Basharu to give us his thought, because in order to prevent Nigerians from taking laws into their hands, because we saw a similar scenario against some South African business concerns in Nigeria, what should we be doing now?
Our president should put a call through to President Nana Akufo-Addo. That is not difficult. Nigerian traders cannot wait until after elections. They are suffering. Last week in Accra alone, and it's not true anyway that these are Nigerians who have been there for 30, 40 years. They are traders, and most of them, I don't want to sound funny, they come from a part of Nigeria that deals mainly in trading. They are traders. Most of them are young. They are hungry. They have family. I personally am not government. Last week, I assembled 133 names. We were able to verify 111 names, and we had to offer them palliatives. Is the government must be seen not to have abandoned their people in Ghana. 3 months, unless we want these guys to die. In fact, one of them last year, if you investigate, committed suicide. Yes, because of a similar situation. So it's not just about election. The thing is that there is this so much anger that Nigerians come there and they are able to sell at cheaper rates compared to their Ghanaian competitors. The only person who can help these guys now is our dear beloved president, and he must act. Let him reach out to them. If our foreign minister needs to fly into Ghana, please urgently let him go there appeal to the government to please have mercy on these people. If they are not going to have mercy on them, then we must find a way to at least temporarily evacuate them. Because trust me,
all right, gentlemen. All right, Chief Basharun Dele Momodu and His Excellency. Well, I'm afraid we're out of time. Okay, just briefly, please.
That is in the immediate. What he's saying is in the immediate. But what I am talking about is to have a lasting solution to this problem. You see, it's easier to say, let us evacuate. But after evacuation, what happens? You see, there are some Nigerians who have made up their mind to live in Ghana. We are not going to abandon those ones too. We must find a lasting solution to it and ensure that it does not repeat itself, more so when elections are coming.
All right, Senator. We appreciate your thoughts this morning. His Excellency Musini Obanikoro, former Nigeria's High Commissioner to Ghana and former Minister of Defense. Gentlemen, thank you for your perspectives this morning. Well, this is a matter that we expect.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so hopefully we'll stay on this matter. Nigerian media too, perhaps you need to weigh in as well on this one. We're back in a moment. Stay with us. All right, so to give us their perspectives on ending the conflict in southern Kaduna, we've got Shaibu Danlami, the leader of the Hausa community, as well as Francis Koza, who is the leader of Atiap community. They both join us from Abuja. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. Now, this peace agreement that has been signed, many have said, look, they've signed peace agreements before. Why do you think this one will be different, Mr. Koza?
We have signed a peace agreement after the 1992 crisis, and that accord lasted for over 28 years. We didn't have any record of any serious breakdown of law and order in Atiap chiefdom. So that at least is a feat. Society is dynamic. Problems could come, and then you try your best to address those problems. The most important thing is the willingness of the people to address their problems headlong. And so this time around, when we had this challenge, these killings from June to August, the paramount ruler felt that, look, there's a need for us to talk. And we talked. And at the end of the day, we agree on some basic things that will enhance the peaceful coexistence in the chiefdom. The most important thing is that this process was home-driven. The people that are directly involved participated, and they evolve the system, the mechanism that they want to use henceforth to be able to deal with any subsequent crisis in the chiefdom. And I think it's something, the commitment of the people are there. It cannot be vouched about it. We can vouch about it. We accept that they are willing to do what they need to do to maintain peace and order.
All right, let me turn to Mr. Danlami on this one. If he says the people are willing, because, I mean, there are those who, first of all, could you tell us, why do you think this will work?
Yes, it will work believing the fact that people who are committed, people who are sincere, people who are trustful, set up something like this, you will go ahead to believe that it is going to work, despite the fact that there may be challenges. But we feel that by the grace of God, this peace agreement that was arrived at the summit will work. So we want to believe that it is going to work by the grace of God.
Okay, gentlemen, we also have Luke Biniad, who is also of Atiap community, Zangon Kataf local government, joining us via Zoom. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Well, everybody wants peace. And now that this peace agreement has been signed, from your perspective, how do you see this playing out?
Well, this peace agreement is something that has to be handled cautiously because from what I have gathered, when I went home on the day of the peace accord, I discovered that a lot of the people who were victims of this violence were not consulted. They had it in the air. They are still hurting. In as much as I have to acknowledge that a lot of the displaced people have returned home out of a sense of security, cautious security and safety. But the healing process and the forgiveness in the heart is yet to come. We ought to have consulted with them because they will tell you that they know the people who came and burned their homes, they know the people who came and killed them. How were they going to forgive? Nobody informed them this and that. So in as much as it is welcome, it is something that is highly desirous of our communities, but we have to give empathy to the victims. We have to ensure that those who have lost so much get some sense of compensation and reparation. But it is a good thing, and it is something that we are hopeful, if the right buttons are touched, enduring and truthful, seamless peace can be achieved in Niger land, our only land.
Just to be clear, are you saying that there needs to be some form of prosecution and justice served for this whole peace accord to work?
Yes, everywhere in the world where this kind of reconciliation took place and was successful, there is no way that you will not bring the parties directly involved. Elite cannot sign an agreement exclusive of the principal actors, exclusive of the people who suffered losses, who suffered pains, who are still going through trauma. You don't go and sign a peace agreement on behalf of somebody who just buried his lost one, somebody who doesn't even, right now there are a lot of them who have lost houses. Who is taking care of them? There are injured people in the hospital who are footing their bills. These are some of the things that ought to have been done. Take care of these people, talk to them. Then the people they are accusing of this violence, if it is possible, bring them face to face, let them talk. But that was not done. In as much as I appreciate and applaud the move of our paramount and chief to see that peace is returned earnestly, but as long as the healing from the heart by the victims is not done, this peace can only be enforced. It is not seamless, it is not harmonious. But I believe that enduring peace can be, like my senior brother Francis said, we have enjoyed peace since 1992. And peace is what we are used to in Niger chiefdom. So it's very easy to reconcile these people if the right move is done.
Well, Mr. Koza, you just heard him, say this, and one wonders if you agree that indeed the people who have been hurt have not been represented. Otherwise, one wonders who are the people that signed, the peace accord on behalf of these people who are, as he said, aggrieved and hurting.
Well, thank you very much. Maybe my brother Biniat is not aware of the consultations that took place before the summit. I make bold to say that I was actively involved. His Highness, the Watiap, Sir Dominic Yahaya, did a lot of consultations. He had a lot of meetings with different stakeholders in the chiefdom. He went round to the chiefdom and met with those who were affected in the crisis. I remember he went round even to my village, Kurumimasara, where it took place. He sat down with the people. The district heads were there, the village heads were there, and the people that were affected directly by the crisis were also there. We sat down, he talked to them, he encouraged them, he consoled them and comforted them, and told them that he is going to take steps that will bring about peace. He moved around all the villages that were affected. He was at Benyegui. He sat down with them and discussed with them. And a host of places. He went to Zango, where the Fulanis were. And he also met with them and discussed with them. And I showed them that he was going to take steps to ensure that peace is returned, to ensure that security is returned. Okay. It was after that consultation, and having got the support of the people, he now summoned this meeting. And the meeting discussed the issues and then arrived at some level of communique. So this communique was now released, and it is this communique that is being pursued. I beg bold to say that His Highness also has planned a meeting to take the message of the community down to the grassroots.
Mr. Koza, just one moment. Just one moment, Mr. Koza. Just one moment, Mr. Koza. Before this segment began, we played a clip that one of your leaders, one of the people who attended that meeting said, Peace can only come when there is justice. How has that meeting and this communique and all these consultations factored in the justice element in this whole process?
The justice element was recognized in that meeting. And one of the resolutions that was taken at that meeting was that henceforth, well, first of all, after consulting with the people, the meeting resolved that the people who are aware of those who perpetrated this should report them to the police, to the security for investigation. And we further say that anybody who commits any offense henceforth must be handed over to the police for prosecution. These are issues that are contained in the resolution. And the people are working. I know as a fact that the security agencies are all over the place. They are now fishing out perpetrators of this act, and they are bringing them to book. So please, what the people are doing, the people are resolved to living in peace. The security agencies, I know, have been enhanced. They are working. They are fishing out all those perpetrators, and they are going to bring them to book. The governor has promised he was going to support that. The chiefdom have promised they were going to support the security agencies. And so we have a reasonable number of security agencies in the chiefdom now. And they are really working to fish out perpetrators. And I believe by the time they finish their own work, investigate, and anybody who is found guilty will be brought to book.
All right, Mr. Danlami.
That we as a people will support the security agencies to effect those changes.
Okay, let me turn to Mr. Danlami. Now, what some of the residents, they say is that before attacks happen, the trend they notice is that some of the herders will usually leave some areas, and before you know what's happening, then there's a strike, and then you don't see them anymore because they say they act on privileged information. So, and then some others just wonder that there are people who harbor certain killers who come from outside the area and then come and carry out some of these acts. What is it thinking, having signed this agreement, moving forward about these issues, these concerns that they have?
Well, let me first of all say that the peace accord, or I will say the peace agreement that was signed as a result of the summit that took place, I was one of those people that signed the communique. And fundamentally, the essence of that summit is not to end the crisis completely, because during the summit, there are specific times that were given that this killing has been on and on and on. And the strike that has happened in June could be traced back to an extension of the crisis since 1992. The fundamental issues in that crisis has still not been resolved. That is the reason why the governor and the government of Kaduna State feels that these problems could be resolved if the white paper is issued, if the white paper is released. As we await the government white paper and other stakeholders that were trying to make sure that they broker peace between us have done their own part, let us come, let us stop these killings, let us understand the differences that bring us together. Let us do one thing or the other. We have signed the agreement believing that it is going to be successful, it is going to work, and it is going to serve as a kickstart. It is going to serve as a roadmap. It is going to serve as something that we can use to continue the discussion in such a way that these problems could be solved once and for all. But fundamentally, other issues relating to the crisis is still there. It has not been finally resolved, and it will take time for all the communities to come together.
Let's bring in Mr. Biniat now, because right after that peace meeting, he actually put out a statement where he spoke his mind. And I recall you ended by saying you want peace, which is what I believe everybody wants in this party. But, you know, he has referred to the white paper, which you spoke about, and you don't quite agree with it. So what do you think should be put in place for this to work?
Okay, first of all, let me respond to what my senior brother Kuza said about white consultation. I do not want to come on national TV and disagree with you, but I want to tell you that I am a community-based person. I am greatly entrenched at home, and I know what the people are saying, and I know the grievances, and I know the anger that is there. But let us leave it there. Let's go back to the issue of the white paper. You see, these are some of the problems that we face under this government. Since 1992, there has never been any crisis in Achablani, and we have already gotten along, with our lives until this new wave of violence, which is very strange to previous violences in Kaduna State. The previous ones were urban-based, and they were sporadic, and they were far in between. But what we have now are continuous assault on rural communities, and then have been literally full amnesia. And we have the district to provide that. Now let me go back to the white paper. I know that the ACD, Community Development Association, strongly kick against that white paper. There is no need for that white paper.
We have to wrap up now, but we want you quickly, tell us very quickly, what do you suggest will be the solution moving forward?
What I suggest will be the solution forward is that, number one, the people that are hurt, the people that are affected, should be compensated. There should be with both the victims and those that are alleged to have committed the offense. Next, the governor must try to understand and show empathy to everybody. His utterances and actions have not been helpful at all. This is what encourages violence. One side is feeling superior over the other one.
Okay, Mr. Koza, suggestions, way forward, moving forward, very quickly, please.
Thank you very much. First, I crave the indulgence of our people to forgive each other. Number two, let all of us be law-abiding. Under no circumstances should anybody take law into his hands. Number three, let us love one another because we all need each other to survive. Thank you.
I mean, quickly as well, your suggestions moving forward.
Yes, with sincerity of purpose, with truthfulness, with commitment from people, we are sure that peace is going to be restored, and we are sure that the people will be involved in everything that we are doing, and that people should also support government to ensure that whatever the government put in place to ensure that this peace has come to last, let people abide by it.
All right, gentlemen.
That's my suggestion, and I wish that everybody will do everything.
All right. Well, thank you all for your comments and for talking to us today. We hope that there will indeed be peace. And as the Vice President did say, they will prosecute culprits of those killings and it will not be swept under the carpet. Let's take a look at some of the comments coming through from you now. We've got Chigozie Ude saying, Nigeria is at its all-time low on diplomatic front. It is a problem of responsible and vocal leadership. If the Nigerian president showed any kind of interest, Ghana will be on their knees, but they know Nigeria won't care.
Well, Prince Austin Oji says Nigerian traders in Ghana that are being frustrated should be asked to come back home. I guess he was quoting what Bashir Dele Momodu said earlier. He has said it the way it should be. Our government are not doing enough. GIP's Act is targeted at Nigerians.
And this one from Fredinet says, this rift did not start today, in my opinion. It can only be solved if the presidents of both nations come together and sign a treaty that is binding.
All right, so there you go. That is the show today. We thank you all for your comments, and we do hope that you keep them coming. We'll see you again next week. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Aren't you just excited? It's Friday. I'm Kyle.
That's why it's raining in Abuja.
Yeah. And I'm Ayo Makide. Please do stay safe out there. Have a wonderful day.